Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And the movie I want to talk about today comes from my year-long journey through the films of Louis Bunuel. And this comes from 1964. This is Diary of a Chambermaid. This is the Kino Blu-ray. This is also streaming on the Criterion channel plus on Canopy. So uh, this is based on a novel by Octave Mirbeau, a very scandalous novel about a chambermaid who gets into all kinds of escapades as she travels from household to household in France. Um, Bunuel and his screenwriter Jean-Claude Carrière, they condense this down to one household, and then they take episodes from different parts of the novel and set it in this one household. They also make a big change as the novel was written in the late 1890s, and they change it to the late 1920s, early 1930s, because this is very much a story about the rise of fascism in France. And the reason Bunuel wanted to do this is because he was born in 1900, and that period of his childhood, shortly preceding his childhood, was to him an untouchable era. He could criticize other eras, but he's not going back into his childhood. In the late 20s, early 30s, he was living in Paris, and he was a scandalous artist himself, as there were riots in the theaters of some of his early surrealistic movies. Another interesting element of Diary of a Chambermaid is that it is filmed in widescreen, the only time that Bunuel used widescreen, in also black and white. And this is crystal clear black and white imagery. Bunuel fills the space, the widescreen space, with these with beautiful cinematography that you would not ordinarily see. Not necessarily beautiful pictures, but you're able to see all the details. It's very similar in the approach that Gabriel Figueroa took in 1954's 1952, I think that was, and again with a very professional black and white imagery. So John Moreau plays this chambermaid called Celestine, and we see her coming from Paris. She's very elegantly dressed for a provincial chambermaid, and she comes to a new household. And this is a household that's ruled by the lady of the house. She is married, but she is definitely the ruler of this house. She's severe, she's haughty. Her husband is sort of ineffectual. He goes out hunting all the time. We learn quite early that she is denying him his sexual rights as a husband. So he's very frustrated. This is a story very much about frustration in the bourgeoisie. So he has to seek elsewhere, and we learn of previous escapades of his where women would have to be paid off, servants had to be sent away. And then there's the father of the house, the father of the lady of the house, and he is a sort of a doddering old man. He doesn't do much of anything. Celestine has been told that her main duty is to see to his needs. Well, his needs are rather peculiar, so in a Bunuel film, we're not really surprised when we see this old man has a fetish. He has it's a calf foot fetish, a foot fetish and a calf of a leg, but mostly it's the shoes. He has a cupboard full of ladies' shoes, and part of Celestine's job in taking care of this old man is to model these shoes for him. And when he's alone, they can drive him into some sort of ecstasy. So this is a very strange household, and it's not strange enough. We have the valet man who basically seems to be running the state. This is Joseph, and he is a very scary guy. You could call him the big bad wolf. So he is, and there is a story, a very disturbing subplot here, where there is a little Red Riding Hood for this big bad wolf, and like I say, it's a very disturbing story. and it happens about halfway through the film. So Celestine herself becomes a different character, basically from the first part of the film to the second part of the film, where her job is no longer to be the chambermaid. Her primary job is to uncover a killer. So as I said, this is very much a story of fascism. Joseph is anti-Semitic. He's anti-immigrants. He has a lot of hatred, a lot of frustration too. As this is a house of frustration, and he has a perversion, and I think it's no coincidence that Bunuel is linking perversion to fascism. But we also have to have a presence of the church in a Bunuel film. So we have the local curate. He comes soliciting donations from the lady of the house. This is evidently a very wealthy household, even though no one does anything in the house. So he comes soliciting donations, but the lady of the house is soliciting advice on her marital duties as far as the church is concerned. And when she describes what's going on and she has to couch it in very sensitive language, and then the curate is just astounded by what she's saying and gives her some really terrible advice. And these are very funny sequences, and also as well as the curate is being played by the screenwriter Jean-Claude Carrière. So you have a sort of inside joke here as well. But all these characters, I'm making them sound very superficial, but they really are complex characters in this screenplay. There's a lot of thought given into who these characters are, and that's including Celestine. She's very smart. She knows how to play around, get what you want, avoid being her admonishments, and avoiding the husband in the family, who very quickly sets his lecherous eyes on Celestine. And Moreau gives a really terrific performance here. This is kind of an overlooked performance, I think, in her career, overlooked Bunuel film as well. She already had become a big star in 1964, a very big star. Elevator to the Gallows was probably her first movie where she gets noticed. She does a lot of walking there. Bunuel was very fond of the way Moreau moved in his films, in this film. And she, like I say, in the second half of the movie, she seeks revenge. She was perplexed in the first couple of weeks of filming because Bunuel wasn't giving her any kind of direction as to how she was going to play the part. So she went to the screenwriter, Jean-Claude Carrière, and asked him, why is he not directing me? Carrière goes to Bunuel and says, well, what am I going to tell her? I'm learning more about the character by watching Moreau play the character than I could tell her how to play the character. So, and Moreau she's very expressive, but she can also be very inscrutable. In the second half of the movie, we might wonder, what is she up to? And so this Bunuel version of this novel has another version, and that was filmed by Jean Renoir in 1946 with Paulette Goddard playing Celestine. And it's interesting to compare the two. Very seldom do you get major directors like this adapting the same novel. Renoir did the same thing as Bunuel and Carrière, and they condensed it down to one household. But each sets the film in its own time, and there's no fascist element here. There's more Renoir's sense of his celebration of the community, of the commune, of the republic. So when the big bad wolf, played Joseph, plays in his version, he's not a fascist, but he is definitely a very bad man, a murderous man. He has killing on his mind, as we learned that Joseph does as well in Bunuel's version. So, Renoir's version plays sort of like a farce that eventually becomes a tragedy, and but it's the community that resolves the revenge. In Bunuel's version, which has a very disturbing ending, much different, much darker. One might say Renoir was an optimist and Bunuel was a pessimist. So the final sequences in Bunuel's version, it sees that fascism is sort of inexorable in the 1930s, and of course from the standpoint of the 1960s, we understand very much that is the case. So the reception for Diary of a Chambermaid was not ecstatic. Bunuel had previously made Exterminating Angel, which was very surrealistic, and people were so baffled by it. They wonder what can this crazy director come up with next, and here he gives them a very realistic, kind of naturalistic story that it's really it exhibits Bunuel's great filmmaking talent. I think he really flows along. We flow along with Jean Moreau. There's much longer takes than we might often see in a Bunuel film, and I find this movie this movie really disturbed me, and it's really I don't know that you call it an outlier, because it in parts of it does sort of harken back to Bunuel's Mexican era of his career, in the kind of melodrama and the kind of sensationalist subject matter. But boy, I really like this film a lot, and even more, or as much as I like the commentary by Imogen Sarah Smith, which is really outstanding, well worth listening to. She sort of sets the standard for what a commentary on film should be. So next up, in my Bunuel series, I'm going to be talking about Illusions Travel by Streetcar. Now this is streaming on YouTube in a pretty good print, no ads and subtitles. So we're going back to his Mexican period in the early 1950s. I'll follow that up with Belle du Jour, and Belle du Jour is streaming on the Criterion channel with all the supplements. And this is probably Bunuel's most famous film. I believe it's his most commercially successful film. Much of that has to do with its star, Catherine Deneuve. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.